power in Renaissance Italy wasn't just about armies or vaults of gold. The Medici, masters of Florence, knew this. Their lavish hunting parties were more than just fun. They were calculated displays of power, wealth, and influence, where blood and sport mixed with diplomacy and intrigue. These weren't simple trips to the forest. These were multi-day extravaganzas involving hundreds of people, exotic animals, and enough food to feed a small army. Step into a world where a noble's hunt could shape the destiny of a nation, and every shot fired echoed with political ambition. This is how the Medici ruled from the saddle, with spear in hand and hounds at their heels. Number 8. The founding chase of Cosimo the Elder. The year is 1445. Florence hums with the relentless energy of commerce and artistic endeavor, but even the great Cosimo de' Medici, known as the Elder and Pater Patrae, father of the fatherland, understood that true power was not only built in counting houses and council chambers. It was also asserted in the grand public display of a family's strength and wealth. Far from the bustling city, in the rolling hills of the Mugello Valley, stood the Villa Cafaggiolo, a fortified country residence that Cosimo had transformed from a medieval fortress into a more comfortable, yet still formidable, country estate. This was to be the stage for a hunting party, a gathering less ostentatious perhaps than those of his great-grandchildren, but foundational in establishing the Medici tradition of integrating sport with statesmanship. Cosimo the Elder, a man of quiet authority, preferred a subtle show of his influence. His hunts were practical affairs designed to provide game for his tables and exercise for his spirit, but they also served a crucial social purpose. The guests for this particular hunt included leading Florentine families, some allies, some rivals, along with visiting dignitaries from other Italian city-states, eager to gauge the true extent of Medici might. The guest list was not merely about prestige, it was about loyalty, about potential alliances, about reminding everyone who held the purse strings, and, by extension, the reins of power in Florence. Preparations for a hunt at Cafaggiolo were extensive, even in these earlier days. Servants began weeks before, clearing trails, setting up temporary lodges for the vast retinue of staff and guards, and preparing equipment. Traps were laid in advance for smaller game, and scouts mapped the movements of boar and deer. The Medici employed a small army of huntmasters, foresters, and gamekeepers. These men were experts in their craft, deeply knowledgeable about the local terrain and the habits of the wild animals that roamed the vast Medici estates. The horses' sturdy Tuscan mounts were groomed and exercised, their tack meticulously checked. Hunt dogs, especially mastiffs for boar and agile greyhounds for deer, were fed special diets and kept sharp. Their kennels at Cafaggiolo were state-of-the-art for the time, a testament to the value placed on these hunting companions. The hunt itself began at dawn, with a robust breakfast of bread, cheese, and wine, fueling the hunters for the strenuous day ahead. And Cosimo, despite his advancing age, still possessed a formidable presence. He rode a powerful horse, his gaze shrewd and observant, missing nothing. The chosen target for this day was wild boar, an animal revered for its ferocity and the challenge it presented. The terrain around Cafaggiolo, with its dense forests and rocky outcrops, was ideal for boar hunting. Beaters, a large number of local peasants and hired hands, moved through the undergrowth, their shouts and the clanging of pots driving the game towards designated areas. Nets, fashioned from thick rope, were stretched across narrow passages designed to funnel the powerful beasts into a specific kill zone where the primary hunters waited. The air thrummed with anticipation as the sounds of the approaching boar grew louder. Hounds bayed with excitement, straining at their leashes. The boar, once cornered, were formidable opponents, their tusks capable of disemboweling a horse or a man. This element of danger was part of the allure, a chance for the Florentine elite, often cloistered in their counting houses, to prove their courage and physical prowess. Cosimo, though not at the front line of the charge, positioned himself to observe the key moments. He watched his sons and grandsons, assessing their bravery and skill, knowing that these qualities were important for future leaders. He also watched his guests, noting their reactions, their confidence, their respect for the power being displayed. The climax of the boar hunt was always a frenzied, chaotic ballet of man, beast, and hound. Spears flashed, dogs snarled, and the roars of the cornered boar echoed through the trees. The successful capture or kill of a large boar was met with triumphant trumpet calls and shouts of celebration. The carcasses were swiftly butchered on site, some meat roasted over open fires for a midday meal, providing sustenance for the hundreds of people involved in the day's activities. The choicest cuts were carefully prepared for the evening's banquet. As dusk settled, the focus shifted from the wild chase to the refined indulgence of the evening. The main hall of Villa Cafaggiolo, usually understated, was transformed. Tapestries depicting hunting scenes and classical myths adorned the walls. Hundreds of candles flickered, casting a warm golden glow across the assembled company. The banquet was a feast for the senses. Roasted boar, venison, and various fowl were served on silver platters, accompanied by dishes made from produce from the Medici farms, fresh vegetables, cheeses, and fruits. Wines, particularly those from the Medici's own vineyards, flowed freely. Historians of the period often recount the sheer volume and variety of food served at these events, a testament to the family's economic power. Musicians played soft, melodic tunes on lutes and harps, transitioning to more lively dance music as the evening progressed. Court jesters and storytellers entertained the guests, their wit as sharp as any hunting blade. It was during these post-hunt gatherings that the real work of Medici power often took place. Over generous servings of wine and food, political discussions unfolded discreetly. Alliances were solidified, marriages proposed, and rivalries subtly managed. Cosimo, from his place at the head of the long dining table, observed everything, a silent conductor of the grand symphony of Florentine politics. He understood that a shared meal, a shared adventure in the wild, could forge bonds stronger than any formal treaty. The hunt was not just a sport, it was a living, breathing mechanism of control, a foundation upon which the Medici dynasty would continue to build its vast and lasting influence. Number 7. Eleonora's elegant falconry at Cafaggiolo. The mid-16th century brought a new level of sophistication and power to the Medici family, largely thanks to the Grand Duke Cosimo I and his formidable consort Eleonora di Toledo. Eleonora, a Spanish noblewoman from one of Europe's wealthiest families, brought with her an unparalleled sense of decorum, an astute political mind, and a love for refined pursuits. While Cosimo I often spearheaded grand militaristic hunts, Eleonora oversaw equally lavish, though perhaps more elegant, affairs. One such memorable event unfolded around 1550 at Villa Cafaggiolo, which had been further expanded and modernized since Cosimo the Elder's time, transforming it into a truly magnificent ducal residence. This particular hunt focused on falconry, a sport deeply ingrained in the aristocratic traditions of Spain, and one that Eleonora excelled at. The guest list for Eleonora's falconry party was carefully curated. It included high-ranking noblewomen from other Italian states, ambassadors' wives, and members of the Florentine court who sought to gain the Duchess's favor. While men were certainly present, often accompanying their wives, the event subtly emphasized the grace and refinement that Eleonora brought to the Medici court. Her presence was a testament to the family's growing status, marrying into one of Europe's most powerful families. The Duchess ensured that every detail reflected this elevated position. Preparations for the falconry hunt were meticulous. The ducal falconers, a highly trained and respected contingent of the court, spent months preparing their birds. The falcons, gerfalcons, and peregrine falcons were housed in custom-built mews at Cafaggiolo, their health and training paramount. Each bird was a significant investment, some gifted by foreign monarchs, others purchased at great expense. Their hoods were often intricately embroidered, and their jesses and leashes were made of fine leather. Dogs, specifically pointers and retrievers, were also trained to work in concert with the falcons, flushing out game and retrieving fallen birds. The setting itself was crucial. The Cafaggiolo's grounds, with their carefully managed fields and woodlands, provided an ideal environment for bird hunting. On the chosen day, a crisp autumn morning, the procession set out from the villa in a display of organized elegance. Eleonora, known for her exquisite fashion sense, rode side-saddle on a finely adorned mare, her gown a masterpiece of silk and embroidery, though practical enough for riding. Her ladies-in-waiting followed, similarly dressed in rich fabrics. The men of the court rode alongside, dressed in their finest hunting attire, often with elaborate feathers in their caps. The hunt itself was a spectacle of speed, precision, and natural instinct. The falconers, perched on horseback, would skillfully release their trained birds, which soared into the sky with incredible velocity. As the dogs flushed out a heron or a partridge, the falcons would dive, exhibiting breathtaking aerial maneuvers. The art of falconry was not just about the kill. It was about the coordinated dance between bird, hunter, and dog. The Duchess observed with a keen eye, often offering commentary or praise for a particularly well-executed strike. The thrill came from the chase, the aerial acrobatics, and the successful retrieval of the prey. Unlike the bloody chaos of a boar hunt, falconry carried an air of refined sport, a testament to man's mastery over nature, but through artistry rather than brute force. At midday, a lavish picnic was set up in a picturesque clearing. Sumptuous rugs were laid out, and portable tables groaned under the weight of an array of delicacies. Cold meats, fine cheeses, freshly baked bread, olives, and an assortment of sweet pastries were served, all accompanied by chilled wines and refreshing fruit juices. The servants, dressed in the Medici livery, moved silently among the guests, ensuring every need was met. The atmosphere was one of relaxed conviviality, allowing for easy conversation and social networking away from the rigid formality of the ducal palace. Eleonora used these moments to cultivate relationships, to listen to whispers of court gossip, and to subtly assert her influence. Her records from her household accounts speak of the immense resources dedicated to these outdoor feasts, a clear indication of their importance. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, the hunting party returned to Cafaggiolo. The evening's festivities were designed to continue the theme of elegance and refinement. The villa's grand dining hall was illuminated by countless candles, reflecting off the polished silver and fine porcelain. The banquet featured the day's quarry, expertly prepared, alongside a myriad of other dishes. The musicians performed intricate compositions, and sometimes a small theatrical troupe would present a short allegorical play. The discussions at the dinner table revolved around art, literature, and the latest fashions, interspersed with polite political discourse. Eleonora, ever the gracious hostess, moved among her guests, engaging each one with a rare blend of charm and shrewdness. She understood that these events were not merely social gatherings. They were vital extensions of Medici power. By demonstrating her own refined taste, her organizational skill, and her family's immense wealth through such exquisite events, she solidified the Medici's position not just as rulers of Florence, but as leading figures on the European stage. The elegant falconry hunt at Cafaggiolo was a powerful statement, spoken through the language of luxury and sophisticated sport, about the indelible mark Eleonora di Toledo left on the Medici legacy. Number 6. Cardinal Giovanni's daring bear hunt at Monte Amiata. Before he ascended to the papacy as Leo X, Giovanni de' Medici was a cardinal, a man of profound learning and considerable personal charm, but also one with a healthy appetite for life's pleasures, including the thrill of the hunt. In the late 1490s, while still a young cardinal but already a powerful figure in the church and within the Medici family, Giovanni organized a particularly ambitious hunting party in the wilder, more remote regions of Tuscany near the slopes of Monte Amiata. This was a departure from the more manicured estates closer to Florence, signaling Giovanni's adventurous spirit and his desire for a challenge. This hunt's target was the elusive and dangerous European brown bear, a creature rarely encountered but highly prized as a quarry. The Medici held vast tracts of land across Tuscany, including mountain wilderness perfect for large game. Giovanni, eager to prove his physical prowess and leadership qualities, decided on a bear hunt. Such an undertaking required immense logistical effort and considerable bravery. The guest list included a mix of fellow cardinals, powerful Roman nobles, and young Florentine men of high standing, many of whom were eager to impress the rising Medici star. The journey itself to the remote hunting grounds was an expedition. A large retinue of servants, guards, cooks, and hunt masters accompanied the main party, transforming the rugged landscape into a temporary camp of luxury. Preparations for the bear hunt were unlike those for smaller game. Bear hunting was notoriously perilous, requiring specialized equipment and a precise strategy. Scouts spent weeks in the mountains, tracking bear movements, identifying dens, and mapping potential ambush points. The trappers were employed to set enormous reinforced nets in strategic locations designed to slow or ensnare the powerful animals. A special breed of hunting dogs, powerful mastiffs known for their fearlessness, were brought from specialized kennels, their training focused on confronting large, dangerous predators. Their protective armor, made of thick leather and sometimes metal studs, spoke volumes about the ferocity of the encounter to come. Giovanni de' Medici, though clad in the crimson of a cardinal, was no stranger to physical exertion. He rode a magnificent charger, his expression alert and determined. The hunt began with a carefully coordinated drive. Beaters, a large force of local villagers and hired men, spread out across the forest, their cacophony of shouts, drums, and horns pushing the bears towards the waiting hunters. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering, covering several square miles of dense forest. The tension built with each passing hour, knowing that a misstep could lead to serious injury or even death. Contemporary accounts from those who witnessed such hunts speak of the raw, primal energy that filled the air. When a bear was finally driven into position, the scene erupted into a chaotic, terrifying ballet of power. The bear, a creature of immense strength and fury, would charge, swiping with its paws and biting with powerful jaws. The hunting dogs, barking furiously, would attempt to distract and contain the beast, often suffering grievous injuries in the process. The hunters, armed with long, heavy spears and crossbows, would then move in. Giovanni, with a courage that belied his clerical robes, positioned himself with the lead hunters, his spear held steady. The killing of a bear was not a quick affair. It often required multiple thrusts and the coordinated effort of several men. The successful dispatch of such a formidable beast was met with shouts of triumph and genuine relief. After the strenuous and dangerous hunt, a lavish camp was set up. Large, ornate tents, usually reserved for military commanders, were erected, some even with portable beds and finely woven carpets. The midday meal, served al fresco, was a celebratory affair. Roasted bear meat, a rare delicacy, was offered, along with other game, freshly baked bread, and abundant quantities of strong red wine. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and shared excitement as hunters recounted their near misses and celebrated their victories. These informal gatherings allowed Giovanni to build rapport with his companions, observing their courage and leadership under pressure. As night fell, the camp transformed into a scene of opulence amidst the wilderness. Torches and bonfires illuminated the clearing, creating a warm, inviting glow. A banquet, prepared by the cardinal's personal chefs who had journeyed with the party, was served. Dishes included roasted boar, venison, and a variety of fowl, alongside more exotic fare like wild mushrooms and forest berries. Musicians, who had also traveled with the party, played lively tunes, and bards recited epic poems of ancient heroes and daring hunts. The political discussions at these remote gatherings were often more open and direct than those held in the confines of a city palace. Giovanni, with his affable nature and sharp intellect, deftly navigated these conversations, securing promises and solidifying his network of allies. The bear hunt on Monte Amiata was more than just a challenging sport for Giovanni de' Medici. It was a calculated demonstration of his bravery, his resourcefulness, and his capacity for leadership. By successfully orchestrating such a dangerous and complex expedition, he sent a clear message to his peers and rivals. The young cardinal possessed not only the intellectual and spiritual qualities of a church leader, but also the physical courage and organizational acumen of a powerful secular prince. It was another important stepping stone on his eventual path to becoming pope. Number 5. Francesco I's exotic menagerie hunt at Pratolino. In the latter half of the 16th century, Florence was ruled by Francesco I de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. Francesco was a man of intense curiosity, deeply immersed in the sciences, alchemy, and the collection of rare and exotic wonders. His love for the unusual extended to his hunting parties, which sometimes transcended traditional sport to become almost theatrical displays of his immense wealth and global connections. One of the most famous examples occurred at his beloved Villa di Pratolino, a monumental estate known for its fantastical gardens, grottos, and elaborate water features, which he began constructing in 1568. This particular hunt, sometime in the 1570s, featured an astonishing array of exotic animals, a testament to Francesco's unique interests. Pratolino was not just a villa, it was a living laboratory and an immense outdoor museum. Francesco's ambition was to create a paradise that reflected the wonders of the natural world and the ingenuity of man. His guests for this extraordinary hunt included not only high-ranking Florentine nobles, but also esteemed scholars, foreign ambassadors, and even a few naturalists from across Europe, drawn by Francesco's reputation as a patron of the sciences. The hunt was as much a spectacle for these learned guests as it was a sport designed to showcase the Grand Duke's eccentric tastes and his ability to acquire creatures from distant lands. The preparations for this hunt were truly unprecedented. Francesco's agents scoured the world, acquiring animals that were then transported, often at immense cost and risk, to Tuscany. For this particular event, it is said that he had a variety of non-native species released onto his vast enclosed hunting grounds at Pratolino. These might have included ostriches, wild sheep from North Africa, perhaps even a smaller species of Asian deer, alongside native boar and deer. These animals were not just released, they were managed within vast semi-wild enclosures designed to mimic their natural habitats as much as possible within the constraints of the time. The grounds of Pratolino were themselves a marvel of engineering, with hidden fountains and automated figures that would surprise and delight visitors. The hunting party gathered in the early morning, dressed in attire that was both practical and fashionable, reflecting the Grand Duke's refined tastes. Francesco, known for his somewhat reserved demeanor, nevertheless radiated an air of intellectual curiosity. He rode a finely bred horse, his gaze often fixed on the exotic animals rather than just the pursuit. The hunt began with a flourish of trumpets. Unlike traditional drives, this hunt might have involved smaller, more specialized groups, each tasked with pursuing a different type of animal. Some hunters might have used crossbows for quieter kills, suitable for rarer species. Others used falcons trained to pursue the larger, more unusual birds. The emphasis was not just on the kill, but on the encounter with these unusual creatures. The pursuit of an ostrich, for example, would have been a bizarre and exhilarating spectacle, quite different from chasing a boar. The bird's incredible speed and unpredictable movements would have tested the rider's skill and endurance. The sight of wild sheep scaling the rocky outcrops of Pratolino's manufactured landscapes would have been equally fascinating. This hunt was less about raw, bloody conquest and more about the elegant pursuit of the unique, a living diorama of the Grand Duke's vast collection. The danger was still present, but it was often overshadowed by the novelty and the aesthetic pleasure of observing these creatures in a somewhat wild setting. Midday, a banquet was arranged within one of Pratolino's famed grottos, perhaps the one adorned with the giant Apennine figure by Giambologna. The cool, damp air of the grotto provided a welcome respite from the sun, and the sound of trickling water from hidden springs created a soothing atmosphere. The food was as exotic as the animals hunted, featuring not only the day's game, but also dishes prepared with ingredients from distant lands that Francesco's merchants had brought back, spices, fruits, and perhaps even early forms of chocolate, a rare luxury at the time. The Grand Duke encouraged intellectual conversation at these meals, inviting his guests to discuss scientific discoveries, philosophical theories, and the wonders of the world. As evening approached, the villa of Pradolino came alive with artificial light. The banquet in the Grand Hall was a multi-sensory experience. The air was filled with the scent of rare incense and exotic flowers. Musicians played complex, often experimental compositions. But the highlight was often the series of mechanical marvels and illusions that Francesco had installed throughout his villa and gardens. The water organs played by themselves, automatons moved and spoke, and hidden fountains sprayed unexpected jets of water. These games of water, as they were known, were a playful yet sophisticated demonstration of applied science and engineering, reflecting the Grand Duke's own passions. Francesco I, though often described as melancholy or reclusive, used these hunts and their accompanying festivities to subtly display his intellectual prowess and his exceptional resources. The hunt at Pradolino was not just a sport, it was an exhibition, a living testament to his unique vision and his ability to command the world's wonders. By bringing the exotic to Tuscany and weaving it into the ancient tradition of the hunt, Francesco solidified his image as a truly Renaissance prince, a man of science, art, and unparalleled wealth. These events were a quiet yet powerful declaration of Medici preeminence, cloaked in the guise of intellectual curiosity and sophisticated pleasure. Number 4, Cosimo, the first Grand Ducal stag hunt at Cafaggiolo. By the mid-16th century, Cosimo I de' Medici had transformed Florence from a republic into the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, consolidating his power with an iron will and a keen understanding of public display. His hunting parties were not merely social gatherings, they were meticulously planned military operations in miniature, designed to project his absolute authority and immense wealth. One of the most spectacular of these hunts, a grand stag hunt, took place around 1565 at the thoroughly modernized Villa Cafaggiolo, now truly a ducal palace in the countryside, surrounded by vast, carefully managed hunting grounds. This event was a show of force, a diplomatic tool, and a source of immense prestige. The guest list for Cosimo I's hunts was a who's who of European power. Foreign ambassadors, visiting princes from other Italian states, and even representatives of the Holy Roman Emperor were often present, alongside the most important members of the Florentine court. Cosimo, a man of imposing stature and unwavering resolve, understood that every aspect of these events spoke volumes about his rule. He was not just a hunter, he was the master of ceremonies, orchestrating a complex ballet of people, animals, and resources. Preparations for a ducal stag hunt were on an industrial scale. Hundreds of men were employed in the weeks leading up to the event. The foresters cleared vast swathes of undergrowth, creating clear lines of sight and pathways for the chase. And gamekeepers carefully monitored the deer population, ensuring a healthy stock of large, magnificent stags for the hunt. Special enclosures and drive lanes, sometimes miles long, were constructed, using thousands of yards of netting and rope. Over 100 hunting dogs, a mix of powerful mastiffs for bringing down large game and swift greyhounds for the chase, were housed in newly built kennels, their training constant and rigorous. Thousands of horses were brought from the ducal stables, groomed to perfection, ready to carry the hunting party across vast distances. Accounts from the ducal archives mention the sheer volume of resources dedicated to these hunts, from fodder for animals to provisions for hundreds of staff. The hunt itself began with a formal procession from the villa, a sight designed to awe. Cosimo I, clad in rich, dark hunting attire, rode at the head, his formidable presence radiating authority. A full complement of trumpeters and drummers announced their departure, their music echoing through the morning air. The chosen quarry, the majestic stag, was a symbol of strength and nobility, making its pursuit a worthy challenge for a Grand Duke. Beaters, numbering in the hundreds, spread out across the extensive grounds, their shouts and the sounds of their sticks driving the stags towards the designated areas. The chase often covered miles, with hunters galloping across fields and through forests, following the baying hounds. The climax of the stag hunt was a scene of controlled chaos and thrilling pursuit. And when a large stag was finally cornered or brought to bay by the hounds, the primary hunters, including Cosimo himself, would move in. The Grand Duke, an expert horseman and skilled with a spear, often aimed to deliver the final, honorable blow, demonstrating his personal courage and mastery. The moment of the kill was announced by a triumphant blast of trumpets, signaling success and concluding the athletic drama. The size and quality of the killed stags were points of pride, their antlers often displayed as trophies. The meat was quickly butchered on site, with large portions set aside for the evening's banquet and smaller cuts roasted over open fires for a midday meal shared by the entire party. The return to Cafaggiolo in the late afternoon was another spectacle. The hunters, often splattered with mud and blood but invigorated, rode back in triumph. The grand courtyard of the villa was filled with the sounds of horses, hounds, and the chatter of excited guests. As dusk fell, the villa transformed into a setting of unparalleled luxury. The grand dining hall, adorned with masterpieces of art and illuminated by thousands of candles, glowed with warmth. The banquet was a symphony of tastes and textures. Roasted stag was the centerpiece, accompanied by wild boar, various birds, and an array of dishes made from the freshest produce and ingredients, all sourced from the vast ducal estates or imported through Medici trade networks. The finest wines, often from the Medici's own vineyards, flowed without restraint. Entertainment was as grand as the food. Court musicians played complex polyphonic pieces, sometimes accompanied by singers. The dancers performed intricate ballets, and occasionally a full-scale play or masca was presented, featuring elaborate costumes and set designs. But beneath the veneer of entertainment, the true business of the Grand Duchy continued. Cosimo I, ever vigilant, engaged his guests in conversation, discussing political matters, securing promises, and subtly asserting his authority. He moved through the crowd, a master of social diplomacy, his presence commanding respect and attention. The Grand Ducal stag hunt at Cafaggiolo was more than just a pastime for Cosimo I. It was a carefully orchestrated performance of power, wealth, and control. By demonstrating his ability to command vast resources, to tame the wilderness, and to host Europe's elite in such magnificent style, Cosimo I reinforced his position as a powerful and legitimate ruler. These hunts were living symbols of the strength and enduring legacy of the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, firmly establishing the Medici as a leading dynasty in Renaissance Europe. Number 3, Ferdinando I's diplomatic chase at Pratolino. In the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Ferdinando I de' Medici, a former cardinal who had renounced his ecclesiastical vows to become Grand Duke, brought a new era of stable prosperity and sophisticated diplomacy to Tuscany. Known for his keen intelligence, his passion for urban development, and his love of hunting, Ferdinando often used grand sporting events as powerful tools for international relations. Around 1600, he hosted one such magnificent hunt at his beloved Villa di Pratolino, an estate he further beautified and expanded beyond Francesco I's whimsical vision, transforming it into a paragon of Baroque garden design and a perfect stage for princely display. This particular hunt saw the presence of a truly international array of guests, including significant ambassadors and even a minor European prince, making it a crucial diplomatic event. The guest list for Ferdinando's hunt at Pratolino was a carefully chosen assembly of European dignitaries, designed to foster alliances and demonstrate Tuscany's growing importance on the international stage. Ambassadors from France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire were present, along with representatives from powerful Italian city-states. Ferdinando, a shrewd and charming host, understood that the shared experience of a grand hunt could break down diplomatic barriers and forge personal connections vital for statecraft. Preparations for this diplomatic chase were extensive, reflecting Ferdinando's meticulous nature. The already sprawling grounds of Pratolino, with its vast woodlands, artificial lakes, and sculpted landscapes, were optimized for a large-scale hunt. Hundreds of local peasants and specialized hunt staff worked for weeks, clearing specific paths, constructing new temporary lodges for the guests and their immense retinues, and setting up vast netting systems to guide game. The ducal kennels, significantly expanded under Ferdinando, housed an impressive array of hunting dogs, powerful boarhounds, swift deerhounds, and specialized trackers. These animals were rigorously trained, their discipline and skill a reflection of the Grand Duke's own exacting standards. An army of horses, drawn from the ducal stables, were prepared, each one meticulously groomed and outfitted with the finest tack. Inventory records from Ferdinando's court often detail the incredible investment in horses, dogs, and hunting equipment, showing how central these activities were to the ducal image. The hunt commenced with a formal procession from the magnificent villa. Ferdinando I, a man of refined tastes and imposing presence, rode at the head of the party, dressed in hunting attire that combined practicality with princely elegance. Trumpeters sounded a fanfare, and the hounds, straining at their leashes, bayed with excitement. The target for this grand hunt was a herd of red deer, known for their majestic antlers and the thrilling chase they provided. The carefully managed grounds of Pratolino allowed for an almost theatrical drive of the deer, funneling them towards open fields where the main hunting party could engage in a galloping chase. The chase itself was a breathtaking spectacle. The thundering hooves of hundreds of horses, the baying of hounds, and the shouts of hunters echoed through the valleys. The deer, swift and agile, presented a formidable challenge, leading the chase across the intricate landscapes of Pratolino, designed to offer both natural beauty and thrilling obstacles. Ferdinando, a skilled and enthusiastic hunter, led by example, often in the thick of the pursuit. The climax involved bringing down the stags, often with spears after a long chase, a moment of intense exertion and danger. The successful felling of a large stag was met with traditional hunting calls and enthusiastic celebration, a shared triumph that transcended language barriers among the international guests. The kill was performed with a certain ritualistic solemnity, honoring the animal and the ancient tradition. The game was then swiftly butchered, with choice cuts reserved for the evening's banquet, and other portions distributed among the hundreds of people involved in the hunt. At midday, a lavish picnic was arranged in a carefully chosen scenic spot within the Pratolino Gardens, perhaps near one of the famous water features or a hidden grotto. Servants, dressed in the Grand Ducal livery, set up portable tables laden with an astonishing array of food, roasted meats, fresh game, cheeses, olives, and bread baked in portable ovens. Delicate pastries, fresh fruits, and an abundance of fine wines and refreshing drinks were also available. The setting, with its sculpted landscapes and artistic fountains, provided a backdrop of refined beauty, contrasting with the wild chase of the morning. Ferdinando used this informal meal to engage his foreign guests in relaxed conversation, building rapport and discussing matters of state in a more convivial atmosphere than a formal audience. As dusk settled, the hunting party returned to the illuminated splendors of Villa di Pratolino. The Grand Hall, a masterpiece of Florentine architecture and art, was transformed into a dazzling setting for the evening's banquet. Thousands of candles and oil lamps cast a warm, golden glow on the frescoes and tapestries. The feast was a culinary masterpiece, featuring the day's quarry alongside an array of other exquisite dishes. The air was filled with the aromas of roasted meats, exotic spices, and sweet pastries. Musicians performed elaborate compositions, and sometimes a small theatrical company presented a masco or a short play, often with allegorical themes celebrating the Grand Duke's virtues or the glory of Tuscany. It was during these evening festivities that Ferdinando I truly worked his diplomatic magic. Moving effortlessly among his guests, he engaged in conversations that ranged from trade agreements to proposed marriages, from military alliances to cultural exchanges. His charm and erudition were formidable tools, allowing him to subtly steer conversations and secure commitments. The shared excitement of the hunt, followed by the shared luxury of the banquet, created an atmosphere of camaraderie and goodwill that facilitated important negotiations. The diplomatic chase at Pratolino was not merely an act of hospitality. It was a powerful assertion of Medici influence, demonstrating Tuscany's sophistication, wealth, and its Grand Duke's ability to navigate the complex world of European power politics. Number 2. Lorenzo the Magnificent's grand Florentine hunt at Poggio a Caiano. At the pinnacle of Medici power and cultural influence stood Lorenzo de' Medici, known as the Magnificent. His reign in the late 15th century transformed Florence into the undisputed center of the Renaissance, a hub of art, philosophy, and diplomacy. Lorenzo understood that power was not just about force or wealth, it was about prestige, about cultural supremacy, and about forging alliances through shared experience. His hunting parties, therefore, were not merely recreational, they were grand spectacles of statecraft, artistry, and intellectual camaraderie. One of the most iconic of these events took place around 1485 at the recently completed Villa di Poggio a Caiano, an architectural masterpiece designed by Giuliano da Sangallo, commissioned by Lorenzo himself. This hunt was a showcase of Florentine splendor, attended by the intellectual elite of Italy and visiting European royalty. The guest list for Lorenzo's hunts was a deliberate mix of the most brilliant minds and powerful figures of his era. Humanist scholars like Marsilio Ficino and Angelo Poliziano might rub shoulders with ambassadors from Milan and Venice, influential cardinals, and even representatives from foreign courts eager to experience the legendary Florentine court. Lorenzo, a man of profound intellect and charismatic charm, aimed to create an environment where sport, learning, and diplomacy intertwined seamlessly. Preparations for a hunt at Poggio a Caiano were extensive and artistic in their execution. The villa, with its elegant design and surrounding parklands, was itself a testament to Lorenzo's vision. His huntmasters, renowned for their skill, managed vast reserves of game, ensuring a plentiful supply of boar and deer. Hundreds of beaters, gamekeepers, and servants were mobilized. The ducal kennels house an impressive array of hounds, each breed chosen for its specific hunting prowess, their training a testament to the meticulous planning that went into every Medici endeavor. The horses, from the finest Arabian breeds to sturdy Tuscan mounts, were groomed to perfection, their elaborate tack reflecting the wealth of their owners. Lorenzo often commissioned artists to design the decorative elements for these hunts, from banners to the livery of his servants, adding an extra layer of aesthetic richness. The hunt began in the cool morning, with a formal procession from the villa that was a sight to behold. Lorenzo, dressed in rich, though practical hunting attire, often rode a magnificent white horse, his presence radiating a quiet authority. He might have been accompanied by poets, composing verses on the spot, or philosophers engaging in lively debate, even as the hounds bayed and the trumpets sounded. The chosen quarry was often boar, an animal whose ferocity made its capture a true test of courage and skill. The vast, carefully managed parklands of Poggio a Caiano allowed for elaborate drives, funneling the powerful animals towards designated areas where the main hunting party awaited. The chase itself was a thrilling, often dangerous affair. The thundering of hooves, the excited cries of the hounds, and the shouts of the beaters created a symphony of the hunt. Lorenzo, a capable horseman and a courageous participant, would often engage in the thick of the action, demonstrating his physical vigor. The climax involved bringing down the boar, often with spears, a moment of raw power and skill. The danger was real, and minor injuries were not uncommon, adding to the sense of shared adventure. The successful capture or kill of a large boar was celebrated with triumphant horn blasts and cheers, a moment of collective exhilaration. The game was then swiftly processed, with portions set aside for the evening's lavish banquet and others roasted on site for a hearty midday meal for the vast retinue. At midday, a feast was prepared outdoors, often by a picturesque stream or an especially cleared glade. Rich tapestries were spread on the ground, and portable tables were set with an array of delicacies. Roasted meats, fresh bread, cheeses, and an abundance of local produce were served, accompanied by the finest wines from Lorenzo's own vineyards. This was not just a meal, it was a continuation of the intellectual and social exchange. Lorenzo, known for his ability to converse on any subject, would move among his guests, engaging them in discussions about philosophy, art, literature, and politics. These informal gatherings were crucial for forging personal bonds that could later translate into political alliances or artistic commissions. Records from his court illustrate the immense resources and culinary expertise dedicated to these outdoor feasts. As evening descended, the hunting party returned to the illuminated splendor of Villa di Poggio a Caiano. The villa's grand salon, a masterpiece of Renaissance architecture, was transformed into a dazzling setting for the evening's banquet. Thousands of candles cast a warm, inviting glow on the frescoes and sculptures. The feast was a culinary triumph, featuring the day's quarry alongside an astonishing array of other dishes, often incorporating rare ingredients from across the Mediterranean. Musicians performed intricate madrigals and frotola, sometimes accompanied by Lorenzo himself, a gifted poet and musician. Poets recited their latest verses, and scholars debated philosophical points. Occasionally a small allegorical play or a grand masque, with costumes designed by leading artists, would be performed, further enhancing the artistic atmosphere. Lorenzo the Magnificent, despite his understated manner, used these grand hunts as a vital stage for his unique blend of power. By seamlessly combining physical sport with intellectual discourse and lavish hospitality, he solidified his reputation not just as a powerful ruler, but as the quintessential Renaissance prince, a man of culture, intelligence, and immense political acumen. The Grand Florentine hunt at Poggio a Caiano was more than just a hunt. It was a living, breathing testament to the magnificence of Lorenzo's reign and the enduring legacy of the Medici family. Number 1, Cosimo III's enduring tradition hunt at Artemino. As the 17th century drew to a close and the 18th century dawned, the Medici dynasty, while still rulers of Tuscany, found their influence waning on the grand European stage. Grand Duke Cosimo III, a man of deep piety and conservative views, nevertheless maintained the family's long-standing tradition of lavish hunting parties. These events, though perhaps lacking the raw political urgency of earlier Medici hunts, were still magnificent displays of wealth, adherence to tradition, and a quiet assertion of continued ducal authority. One notable hunt, held around 1705, took place at the Villa di Artemino, a grand country residence built by Ferdinando I. Artemino, with its commanding views and extensive hunting grounds, was a fitting backdrop for a Grand Duke keen on upholding the legacy of his ancestors. Cosimo III's guest list for these hunts often included members of the Tuscan nobility, high-ranking clergy, and a diminishing number of foreign envoys. While diplomacy was still present, it was often more about maintaining existing relationships than forging new grand alliances. For Cosimo III, the hunts were also a way to retreat from the complexities of court life and to connect with a simpler, more primal aspect of ducal existence, even if it was still surrounded by immense luxury. He cherished the traditions of his family and ensured that these hunts followed the established rituals. Preparations for the Artemino hunt were extensive, carried out by a dedicated staff of hundreds who ensured every detail upheld ducal standards. The grounds around Artemino, with its cypress-lined avenues and expansive vineyards, were also home to carefully managed woodlands abundant with game. Foresters and gamekeepers ensured a healthy population of deer and boar. The ducal kennels, still impressive, housed well-bred hounds, their lineage meticulously recorded for generations. Horses from the ducal stables were plentiful, reflecting the continuous investment in this core aspect of noble life. The sheer scale of the provisions, from food and wine for hundreds to tents and equipment, underscored the Medici's enduring, if somewhat constrained, wealth. Detailed inventories from Cosimo III's reign show the continued expenditure on hunting, even as the Medici's financial power began its slow decline. The hunt began in the morning with a formal procession from the imposing Villa di Artemino. Cosimo III, a devout man, often started the day with a special mass in the villa's chapel, seeking divine blessing for the day's endeavors. He then joined the hunting party, riding a sturdy horse, dressed in traditional hunting attire. The hunt itself was a carefully managed affair. Beaters moved through the forests, skillfully driving the game, often red deer, towards designated areas. The chase was still exhilarating, with riders galloping across the Tuscan landscape, following the baying hounds. The challenge of the hunt, the thrill of the chase, and the eventual capture of the prey were still central to the experience. Cosimo the Third, though more reserved than some of his ancestors, took pride in his skill as a hunter. He participated actively in the pursuit, sometimes delivering the final blow to a magnificent stag. The moment of the kill was announced with traditional horn calls, and the collected deer were brought back to the villa, their antlers a symbol of the day's success. The day's events, though less overtly political than in Lorenzo's time, still served as a public display of the Grand Duke's authority over his lands and his ability to command impressive resources. A simple but abundant midday meal of roasted game and bread was often served outdoors, allowing the hunters to rest and refresh themselves before the return to the villa. As evening approached, the hunting party returned to Artemino. The villa's grand halls, still adorned with art accumulated over generations, were prepared for the banquet. Thousands of candles illuminated the elaborate frescoes and tapestries, creating a warm and luxurious atmosphere. The feast was a testament to the Medici's continued culinary excellence. The day's game, often roasted whole, was the centerpiece, accompanied by a myriad of other dishes, fresh produce, cheeses, and rich desserts. Wines from the ducal estates flowed freely, upholding the tradition of generous hospitality. Entertainment was still a part of the evening, though perhaps more subdued than in earlier centuries. Court musicians played traditional Florentine melodies. Conversations revolved around the hunt, local news, and family matters. While high politics were still discussed, the focus was often on the internal affairs of Tuscany or on maintaining existing diplomatic ties. Cosimo III, true to his character, often used these evenings to engage in theological discussions or to talk about his various religious foundations. He would move among his guests, ensuring their comfort and subtly reinforcing his position as the Patriarch of Tuscany. The enduring tradition hunt at Artemino, led by Cosimo III, was a powerful affirmation of the Medici's continued reign. Though the family's power was no longer as absolute as it once was, and their influence on the European stage had lessened, these hunts were a clear demonstration that the Grand Dukes of Tuscany still commanded immense wealth, still held vast estates, and still adhered to the long-standing rituals of princely life. They were a link to a glorious past and a testament to the enduring legacy of a family that had once reshaped an entire continent. In a changing world, the hunt at Artemino was a reminder that some traditions, particularly those steeped in power and spectacle, persisted.